Have you ever been with someone who made you feel literally crazy? Someone who just constantly changed the rules on you, day in and day out?
Well, that's a narcissist. And in this explainer, I'm breaking down 7 specific manipulation tactics they use to keep you trapped. Because here's the thing, once you know these tactics, you will absolutely never fall for them again. So let's just get right into it. First up, we really need to get clear on what narcissistic abuse actually is. Because look, this isn't just about someone having a bad temper, right? Or just being a bad communicator. No, it is a completely invisible, highly methodical campaign. And it's designed to completely undermine your reality and make you 100% dependent on their version of events. It's really about absolute power and coercive control, not just some simple misunderstanding.
Okay, so let's move into Section 1, Distorting Your Reality, covering Tactics 1 and 2. Have you ever seriously questioned your own memory of how something went down?
Well, that brings us to our first tactic, gaslighting. This is the absolute foundation of their control. It's a wildly destructive psychological tactic where they actively make you doubt your own memory, your feelings, and honestly, eventually your own sanity. And their goal? It isn't just to accidentally confuse you. No, they want to literally rewrite reality. They will hide your car keys, sit back and watch you frantically panic, and then calmly look at you and say that you're always losing things. They just want you constantly coming back to them to figure out what's real and what isn't.
Just notice the stark difference here. In a healthy conflict, there is actually room for mutual repair, right? A healthy partner is going to say something like, I remember it a bit differently. Let's talk about it. But a narcissist, they impose their own improvised, made-up reality just to assert absolute dominance. They'll snap at you with, I never said that, you're crazy. They draw this hard line where their subjective opinion is literally the only acceptable truth.
All right, moving on to Tactic 2, which is projection. This is a wild one. This is when the abuser takes all the thoughts, the feelings, or the impulses that they just cannot accept in themselves, and they literally hand them directly over to you. So, the partner who's actually being unfaithful, they're the ones accusing you of cheating. Or the one who's emotionally withholding, they accuse you of being cold and distant.
See, a healthy person will honestly examine their own behavior when things go wrong. But the manipulator, they just blame you. And the crazy thing is, this works flawlessly against self-aware, driven people. Why is that? Because your natural instinct is to be honest and examine yourself. When they accuse you, you probably think, wait, is this a blind spot? Am I actually being cold? And before you know it, you end up unwittingly absorbing their disowned toxicity while they just sit there taking absolutely zero accountability. It's a brilliant trap, honestly.
Which brings us to Section 2, Sabotaging the Communication. That's Tactics 3 and 4. Tell me, have you ever felt like you were arguing with a mirror, where literally nothing ever gets resolved and you just end up exhausted?
That's because of Tactic 3, Darvo, and word salad. So, when you try to confront a narcissist about their actions, they deploy what we call word salad. It's these confusing, circular, completely illogical arguments. You'll bring up something simple, like them being late, and suddenly it turns into this aggressive screaming match about something you supposedly did 3 years ago. And they pair this with Darvo. That stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It's this hyper-aggressive maneuver rooted entirely in preserving their own fragile ego at all costs.
So instead of just taking accountability, they violently flip the script. Suddenly, you are the one on trial just for daring to challenge their bad behavior. You go to them saying, hey, you hurt me, and somehow, through the magic of Darvo, you leave the argument apologizing to them. It's wild. In a healthy dynamic, your partner simply hears you out, validates that you're upset, and, takes responsibility.
Now for Tactic 4, Triangulation. To maintain the upper hand and keep you feeling deeply insecure, they will bring a third party into your dynamic. This is done to manufacture jealousy, create chaos, or just to validate whatever smear campaign they're running against you.
Look, healthy relationships keep relational tension strictly between the two people involved. But a narcissist, they recruit what psychology actually calls flying monkeys, or they'll constantly compare you to an ex-partner. They completely outsource the emotional processing. They'll say stuff like, well, even my mom and your friends think you're overreacting, and they do this to ensure that you feel outnumbered, completely destabilized, and just utterly alone in the relationship.
Next up is Section 3, Weaponizing Your Emotions, covering Tactics 5, 6, and 7. And listen, these are the tactics that literally hijacked your brain's survival architecture. They make leaving feel neurologically impossible.
Tactic 5 is the abuse cycle. Narcissistic relationships don't just feel chaotic by accident. Not at all. They follow this terrifyingly predictable cycle that is designed to keep you emotionally off balance, eternally walking on eggshells, and just desperately craving that initial high you felt at the very beginning of the relationship.
It always starts with the ultimate high, love bombing. This is that intense affection and those grand gestures they use to build rapid, super strong attachment. But the second they have you hooked, the devaluation begins. This is the systematic criticism, the fault-finding, the gaslighting. And then, right when you are entirely drained, comes the discard, a totally abrupt, callous abandonment. But wait, it doesn't end there, because they inevitably return with hoovering, literally sucking you back into the nightmare with fake remorse and totally empty promises.
And that entire cycle thrives on Tactic 6, intermittent reinforcement. Basically, this is a pattern of cruel, completely callous treatment, mixed with random, unpredictable bursts of affection. Think of the abusive partner who brings you this beautiful, expensive bouquet of flowers literally right after a vicious, degrading, screaming match.
So why does this actually work? Well, it's chemistry. Oxytocin, the love hormone, builds your initial trust. But because dopamine, the reward hormone, actually flows way more readily on an unpredictable schedule, your brain literally becomes addicted to the hot and cold chaos. It's exactly like a gambler who's just hypnotized at a slot machine. The unpredictable rewards create neural circuits that are basically identical to a cocaine addiction. Your nervous system is physically bonding to the abuser, basically mistaking all this intense anxiety for love and survival. It's scary stuff.
Finally, we have Tactic 7, withholding and the silent treatment. To strictly punish you for, stepping out of line or asserting a boundary, or just so they can regain their dominance, they will simply shut down entirely. They completely withhold all affection and communication.
Now sure, a healthy person might ask for a quick 20-minute timeout to just cool off during a heated argument, right? That's normal. But the narcissist, they use days or even weeks of agonizing silence to intentionally manufacture intense anxiety. They are literally trying to force you to break down, abandon your own boundary, and beg for their attention. I really want you to let this quote sink in for a second. Narcissists don't have relationships. They take prisoners. That's from Pete Walker. And if you have ever felt trapped, you really need to understand that this dynamic, it was never about real love. Not for a second. It was entirely about maintaining power and absolute control over you.
And the reason you couldn't just think your way out of it is because of cognitive dissonance paired up with a trauma bond. Cognitive dissonance is that profound psychological discomfort of holding two totally contradictory truths in your head at the exact same time. Like, I love them, but also they hurt me. Your body actually learned to seek relief from the exact same person who is causing your distress. So please remember, this is a powerful biological response. It is not a character flaw on your part.
Which brings us to our conclusion, reclaiming your reality. I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are targeted by someone incredibly skilled at manipulation, someone who specifically exploited your deep empathy, your endless patience, and your competence. You deserve someone who loves you completely without games. Now that you know exactly what these tactics look like, you can protect yourself and reclaim your truth. So please, drop a comment below telling us which of these tactics you've actually experienced, so we can all protect ourselves together. And hit like and subscribe for more psychology facts to keep building your psychological armor. Now that you can see the invisible strings they use to pull, the only question left is what will you do with your newfound freedom? Thanks for joining me on this